Good evening. It's a very cold evening here in Corpus Christi and in Houston. I think my husband, it's a little colder in Houston than it is here in Corpus Christi. I finally got the flu. Yes, it was the flu and it wasn't COVID, so that was kind of funny to me. But nonetheless, I'm turning 50 this year and I'm going strong. But I wanted to let you guys know that the market is definitely picking up. And I was talking to a friend recently, I think it was just a couple days ago, and they're actually buying a property with me. And we're just talking about real estate and in general. And I said, unless you're an expert at real estate or you're really familiar with real estate, it's so important to have an experienced real estate agent. I mean, like, people wanna save money, but if you don't have an experienced agent and you don't know what to look for and you don't know what could happen or et cetera, then you could, by seemingly saving yourself a little bit, cost yourself a lot more. There's so much to be aware of, and different markets have different, um, things to be aware of. Like here in Corpus Christi, it's very common for the foundations in the central part of Corpus, actually everywhere except the island, to have the soil move. And if people don't keep their soil stabilized by keeping it watered a couple times a week, meaning keeping some sort of moisture balance in that soil, it can expand and contract to such extremes that it causes the foundation to shift, move, and potentially break. They call it failing. And it's not something to freak out about. It's very common here, and that's why we have foundation stabilization um, that we do to remedy the problem. My preference is when a company does it is they stabilize it. They don't level it. Stabilizing it just basically stabilizes it. It doesn't push it up too much. Now, if the foundation has settled several inches, then they might push it a little bit just to bring it up a little closer to what its original baseline was, but not all the way, because you don't want to put stress on the foundation and then potentially causing it to sink. But I'm doing a deal right now, and the buyer got a little nervous when they said, "Oh, there's been foundation work and what's going on," and they're not familiar with it. And for those of us that are familiar with it, we just kind of like blow it off. But we've got to understand that people coming from other locations will not be familiar with this scenario. I remember when I was in Missouri looking at property, they were talking about radon gas. When there are basements, there are radon tests for radon gas that could be toxic in the house. That's not something we have here because we don't have basements here. And we have plumbing tests here in Corpus Christi, and it's kind of 50-50 in Houston. It's picking up in some other areas, but these are things we do to protect you. Slow leaks aren't necessarily a problem, but when you get those big leaks, it's like, oh, that could be a problem. That could be one of the reasons your foundation is moving. But it could be the contrary. It could be your foundation moved and broke your plumbing. So it's good to have reputable people who are trustworthy helping you and making sure that you utilize the right inspectors that are honest and not just trying to find a way to make money. And people that don't just try to push you through and make a deal, and don't really care about getting your inspections done and telling you everything's okay, because I've heard those stories too. When it comes to listing, you want to do your best, give it your best shot. I mean, market your home as best as you can, but don't market it as it's not. I know that sounds a little cheesy, but sometimes, I see some of these listings, like Open Door, has bought a lot of properties lately, and I'm kind of surprised. But their virtual staging and everything looks so nice. But I get there and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not quite what it seems. So we got to do our best to just be honest, so the expectations are right. And when we're listing, to be honest with the person you're listing for, just tell them, look, your house needs some cosmetics or some stuff, or it's dated, or Why don't you just price it right instead of, pricing it high like everybody else and having a better shot of selling it for what it's worth and selling it faster? I think at this point in my career, my husband and I, especially my husband, he's like, babe, you're so patient with people. You're so, you take on all these people with all these issues and you're so generous and patient. And I'm like, I am, but, and it's not that I want to stop being patient and generous, but I think I'm recognizing that my time is worth what I charge. And I've always known my time is worth what I charge. I think at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I don't need people that don't value my my integrity, my expertise, my service. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I can say that I really give it my all when I try to serve my clients, and they can trust me. I remember recently someone I was going to list for, and that I kind of took a step back because they wanted me to list for like 60 grand, 50 grand more than I should. And they had tenants who hadn't paid rent for 6 to 8 months, and they wanted to overprice it. And it was in, this okay part of town. And then I got kind of distracted. Next thing I know, like they didn't, they got frustrated with me, and then listed it for the price they should with somebody else. And I'm like, you know what? If you'd just been realistic the first round, I would have been fine. But don't expect me to, um, honey, do you see? Anyway, when you need real estate help, we're here to help you. My husband and I have been doing this a long time, and you can trust us. We got you whether you're buying or selling. Okay, have a great night.